Hey guys, welcome to Unit 11, the first lesson of it. This lesson is our lesson on, or not lesson, okay, let me just start that over. Hey guys, it's Miss Simon. Basically this unit 11 is about genetics. So we're gonna start to learn about like, why is your hair a certain way? Why do you behave a certain way? Like, what does it actually look like? And yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting. So let's buckle on up and get into it. Starting with Unit 11, Lesson number 1, Genetic Variation and Meiosis. So a warm-up question is, the process of mitosis creates blank cells with blank chromosomes, while the process of meiosis creates blank cells with blank chromosomes. So one thing about these two things is to note, my with a T or my with no T. Okay, they sound very similar, and that's why it kind of gets confusing for students. So I want to make sure that we just drill this over and over and over again. That the process of mitosis creates body cells with all 46 chromosomes, the complete set of chromosomes, while the process of meiosis is going to create sex cells with only 23 chromosomes. Okay, and hopefully we all know why these are only 23 chromosomes, but if not, we're going to get into it later. Obviously, our lesson objective is going to be, students should be able to outline the events of meiosis and determine its importance in genetic variation. But first things first, we want to review mitosis. It's been a little bit since we've reviewed it. So remember, mitosis is G1, S, and G2, aka interphase. After that, we have mitosis, which is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and then telophase. Prophase, metaphase, they line up in the middle. Anaphase, the chromosomes are being pulled apart. And telophase, there are two new nuclei. And then last but not least, cytokinesis, when the cells are fully formed as their own totally different entities. Okay? When would a cell do mitosis? Well, a cell is going to do mitosis anytime that it needs an identical copy of a cell. So for example, if the organism starts off as a little bitty baby, and then it's going to grow up to a big giant adult, as those cells cannot grow bigger, we have to create more cells. Okay? Or something like this, when a red blood cell reaches the end of its 120-day life cycle, the cell only lives for 120 days. At the end of that, it dies off, but another one divides. Okay? Or let's say someone gets a sunburn, they need new skin cells at that place of that sunburn. Then mitosis is going to create an identical copy of the skin cell that was there before it was damaged. Okay, here's a review of what mitosis looks like. So this is P-mat, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. Then, easy way for me to remember this is prophase, the cell is preparing to divide. Metaphase, the cell's chromosomes are lined up in the middle. Okay, when they line up in the middle, those spindle fibers are there attaching to them. Then anaphase, the chromosomes are being pulled apart. The sisters, they're being pulled apart. And then telophase, there are two new nuclei. And then last but not least, of course, we have cytokinesis, which is the full separation of the cytoplasm. Okay. Also remember DNA replication. I'm not going to go into it because we've already done this so many millions of billions of times. But remember that hydrogen bonds are broken by DNA helicase, which unzips our genes. And then DNA polymerase comes in and puts those base pairs on top. Okay, so in the end, we end up with two identical DNA molecules, half new, half original. It's kind of a lot to say half new or half original. It doesn't sound very scientific, so scientists, we like to say it is semi-conservative, which means part of it was conserved, but part of it is new. That's what that means. When does meiosis occur? So now we're noticing we're talking about meiosis. Well, meiosis is going to occur only in two times. When the body needs an egg cell, or when the body needs a sperm cell. Those are the only times meiosis will occur. Every other type of cell in the body is formed by mitosis with a T. Vocabulary. This versus that. So we're going to compare a lot of the things in this, such as mitosis versus meiosis. A lot of it's going to be in comparison to one another. So that's why I'm going to do it like this. So we have somatic cells, and then we have gametes. Somatic cells are going to be all of the body cells. So, for example, neurons in your brain and spinal cord, columnar epithelial cells in your skin or your small intestine, erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, or even smooth muscle cells, such as your diaphragm, muscles that you cannot control. Then we have sperm or egg, which are known as sex cells, which are known as gametes. Okay, so the only two gametes are sperm and egg. Everything else is a somatic cell. Okay, this root soma just means body. Asexual versus sexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction is what we talked about before. That's mitosis, where we make exact copies. Okay, so the daughter cells end up being genetically identical to the parent cell. Now today we're going to start to talk about sexual reproduction, which is when the daughter cells are genetically different from the parent cell. They're also going to be genetically different from each other. Right? That is why you are not the exact same as your mom or your dad. You are also not the exact same as your brother or your sister. Right? Because all the cells are genetically different through sexual reproduction. Okay, then we have mitosis versus meiosis. Mitosis is what we talked about. That was the PMAT, right? We started off with a cell. We replicated the DNA, and the cell split into two, so that each cell ended up with equal copies. Now we have meiosis, where we're going to have DNA does replicate again. Okay, so it replicates. And then the cell's going to split once, and then the cells are going to split again. So we're going to end up with 4 cells at the end of meiosis, because we have 2 different divisions, which we should already know based off of from our worksheet. Okay, then we have diploid versus haploid. So diploid is just going to mean that there are 2 sets of chromosomes. So di means 2. Haploid is going to be a single set of chromosomes. Okay, so all of your body cells, so your lung cells, your kidney cells, your brain cells, your eyeball cells, those all are diploid. They have 2 sets of chromosomes. While sperm and egg each have 1 set of chromosomes, so that the sperm brings in 1 set of chromosomes, and then the egg brings in 1 set of chromosomes. They fuse together, and then they end up with 2 sets of chromosomes. That is why you are a little bit of your mom and you're a little bit of your dad, because you got 1 set of your chromosomes from your mom, and 1 set of your chromosomes from your dad. That's it. I don't know why I tried to, whatever. Okay, this versus that. So just going to put it all together on one page and really look at it and internalize it. And if you're taking notes, which I really, really hope through genetics, I really, really, really honestly and truly hope that you take notes with this, because it's something that is not intuitive. In OT, not intuitive. So you're going to want to take some notes, or at least, take a screenshot. I don't know. This versus that. So we have somatic cells and we have gametes. Somatic cells are body cells. Gametes are sex cells. We have asexual and sexual. Asexual is going to make genetically identical offspring, and sexual reproduction is going to make genetically diverse offspring. Okay? Well, mitosis versus meiosis. Mitosis is when one parent cell is going to divide into 2 identical daughter cells. Meiosis is going to be when one daughter cell or one parent cell is going to divide 2 times. There's 2 divisions. And it's going to make 4 diverse, different daughter cells. Okay? So these all kind of go together. Gametes, sexual reproduction, and meiosis all really go together, while mitosis, asexual reproduction, and somatic cells all really go together. So I've also noticed that I've tried to organize this information in a way that is intuitive, which just means, intuitive means it can stick in your brain graphically. Okay. Meiosis. So sexual reproduction, aka creating genetically different offspring. So remember mitosis? Well, I hope you do. If you don't, not good. But whatever. Mitosis is used for almost all of your body's cellular division needs. Mitosis replaces old and worn out cells with exact clones throughout your life. The goal of mitosis is to produce daughter cells that are genetically identical to their mothers, with not a single chromosome more and not a single chromosome less. Mitosis makes exact copies. Now we're going to talk about meiosis. Meiosis or meiosis, it's really meiosis, but you might, whatever. Meiosis, on the other hand, is used for just one purpose in the human body: the production of gametes. Gametes are also known as sex cells. Sex cells are also known as sperm or eggs. Its goal is to make daughter cells with exactly half as many chromosomes as we started out with, so that when a sperm and an egg fuse, the resulting offspring has a complete number of chromosomes. Okay? So we know this. A sperm and an egg must fuse together in order to create babies. We know that. Sperm swims towards the egg. They fuse, and then boom, babies are born. So if that happens, how many chromosomes must be in one egg cell? How many chromosomes must be in one sperm cell? If whenever they fuse, they have to end up with 46, how many is in each? Well, we're going to have 23 chromosomes in the egg and 23 chromosomes in the sperm. That is going to add up to 46 chromosomes total for the developing baby. Okay, this is what it looks like. Move myself. There we go. So we have an egg cell. Egg cell has N23, so it's 23 chromosomes. We have a sperm cell. See, it's a sperm, it has a little squiggle. Then we have a sperm cell. They're going to meet up and they're going to fuse. Once they meet up and they fuse, they're going to make what's called a zygote. Here's that vocabulary again. Zygote. A zygote is going to end up with 23 plus 23. That makes up 46. Okay? So again, let's say that you are the zygote. 23 of your chromosomes came from your mom. 23 of your chromosomes came from your dad. Boom. As humans, each of our somatic cells, somatic means body cells, has 46 chromosomes in it. So how many chromosomes are in a neuron? How about a columnar epithelial? An erythrocyte? A smooth muscle cell? 46 in all of these. How many chromosomes are in a sperm or an egg? 23. They have half as much. Okay. How are these cells made? These are made through mitosis. These are made through meiosis. Notice I'm just saying the exact same thing over and over in different ways because it's not that much to it. I'm just trying to, it's not that much to it. All right, let's go to the phases of meiosis. So meiosis is basically mitosis, but it happens twice. And there's like two key differences. So stick with me. So we start off with the parent cell. And that parent cell has 2 copies of each chromosome. Then its DNA is going to replicate. When does DNA replicate? During the S phase, synthesis phase, exactly. DNA replicates in S phase. Just saying, that's on your test like 3 different times. So if you can remember DNA replicates during S phase, you will be good to go. Okay, one thing to note, which I did not notice until I went to college, and that's why I honestly struggled with genetics. This right here is a chromosome. That right there is 1 chromosome. Okay, a chromosome can have 1 arm or it can have 2 arms. It has 1 arm until it goes through DNA replication. Then it has 2 arms. They're identical. That is why You'll sometimes see them be referred to as sister chromatids. That just means a chromosome that has replicated. So it has 2 copies of it. Okay, that's one thing to note. So the DNA, we have 2 chromosomes here. Oh, you can come in. Oh, wait. Hold on. Ah! Okay, sorry, I had some visitors. But yeah, let's move on. So, after the DNA has been replicated, then the chromosomes are going to do what's called crossing over. So, crossing over is literally what it sounds like. The arms and the legs of them are going to cross over each other, and whenever they do that, they're going to exchange genetic material. Now, I do not know how exactly they do this, but I know that it happens. They cross over and they exchange genetic material. Do you think that if they were switching genetic material with each other, would that increase diversity of the DNA sequence, or would that decrease the diversity of their DNA sequences? Think of it like this. Here's a good graphic of it. So first we have one that's all blue, we have one that's all red, just for demonstration purposes. Obviously your chromosomes are not actually these colors. Then their legs are going to cross over, and they're going to switch. They're going to swap. Does that increase diversity or decrease diversity? That's going to increase diversity because it's going to switch up the combinations of genes, right? This is not very diverse. If it's all blue, that's not very diverse. But suddenly if it's blue with a little bit of red on it, it's got some switched around genes, a different combination of genes. Now suddenly we're experiencing some more genetic diversity. So that's one of the ways. Crossing over is one of the ways in which meiosis creates genetically different daughter cells. So when you need new combinations during a card game, you're going to shuffle the deck, and suddenly there are new combinations. Think of crossing over as the shuffling of a deck of genetic cards. It's going to give DNA all of these new and unique combinations that we haven't seen before. Okay, crossing over. Okay, so again we had, oh wait, where's my pointer? We had this DNA, then we duplicated the DNA, then we crossed them on over, swapped out some of that DNA, switched them on up, got some new combinations going, and then now the cells are starting to split. They're starting to form 2 new nuclei, and then boom, now we have 2 new cells. So notice that we started off with these chromosomes, and now our DNA looks different, right? So we're already seeing diversity. We're seeing different DNA combinations that we haven't, okay? However, we're not done yet, right? We know meiosis ends up with 4 daughter cells. Right now we only have 2, so our first division has happened. Let's go and see our second division. So of course, as always, chromosomes are gonna line up in the middle. Then they're gonna start to get pulled apart. So metaphase, they're lined up in the middle. Then anaphase are gonna start to get pulled apart from each other. And then boom, they're going to cytokinesis and all of that to each other. And now look at our DNA. Notice how diverse our DNA is. Are any of these chromosomes in here the same? No, all of their DNA is different. All their DNA is different now. We started out with this, and we ended up with 4 different DNAs. So we need to remember, meiosis creates genetically diverse things.
Meiosis is a special type of cell division that produces sex cells, also known as gametes. Sex cells are needed for reproduction.
Beautiful. A simple way when I was just very chaotic, but I hope that was a good wrap up. Okay, so the main ideas of meiosis. So if you haven't paid attention to anything, if you've been on your phone this whole time, at least listen to this. Meiosis, there are 2 divisions. One parent cell is going to divide twice. It's going to end up with 4 daughter cells. Meiosis creates genetic diversity by crossing over. and this thing that's called independent assortment. We'll get to what independent assortment is in a second. There are 23 chromosomes in each gamete. And of course, that is only half of the DNA that is found in all the other cells of the body. And that is because egg and sperm with 23 and 23 meet up to make 46. Okay, what is the law of independent assortment? So Mendel's law of independent assortment says that traits are inherited independently. That means that a couple where one parent has freckles and the other one has curly hair can still have a child with curly hair and freckles because those traits come separately. Inheriting freckles has no bearing on inheriting your hairstyle. So what if the law of independent assortment didn't apply, right? Well, then the couple's kid could either have no freckles with his curls, or the child would have to have freckles and straight hair. They would either have to get all of these traits or all of those traits. But in real life, no, you can mix and match. Traits can be mixed and matched. So a child can have freckles and then their dad's curly hair. That's the law of independent assortment. Okay, so here's a graphic representation of independent assortment. So start off with the cell. Then there's two options basically. The cells can line up to where these chromosomes are together with those, or it can line up to where they're lined up like this, where they're diagonal from each other. In the end, we'll end up with that as a result. But if they just happen to line up this way, then it ends up like that. And notice that these are different scenarios. So that is another way in which, so independent assortment is one of the ways in which genetic diversity can occur. Just by mixing up what chromosomes end up in what gametes. I don't know if I'm explaining this right. Independent assortment gives rise to genetic diversity because it increases the number of different combinations of traits and gametes. Okay, while crossing over crossing over shuffles the alleles around, so there are new combinations each time. There are infinite possibilities. Independent assortment states that traits are inherited on their own. So you may get your mom's curly hair, but it doesn't mean that you have to get her freckles, right? These traits are inherited separately. Okay, this is what crossing over can look like. Okay, so usually in very simple diagrams, we just show one leg and one arm crossing over each other. But in real life, crossing over occurs at many places along the chromosome. So it actually shuffles it up a lot more than maybe you might have thought based off of those pictures from earlier. Okay? So when we started off with simple chromosomes like that, now we have diverse, complex chromosomes. I thought this was funny. Okay, let's put it all together. How does reproduction actually happen? So we have a man and a woman. In all of their body cells, their somatic cells, they have 46 chromosomes. Meiosis happens. What is produced by meiosis here? Eggs and sperm, exactly. How many chromosomes is inside of an egg? 23. Perfect. Okay. Then the eggs and the sperm meet up. They're going to fertilize. They fertilize and begin to form what is called a zygote, which is just a developing organism to divide and divide and divide and divide and divide, 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 until it becomes a baby. That division process is mitosis. And okay, so this is another thing that students get confused on. They're like, but how can it just divide if all the cells are identical? So every cell, all of your somatic cells have the exact same DNA inside of them. Your kidney cells and your liver cells and your eyeball cells and your scalp cells, they all have the same DNA inside. They all have your complete genome. The only difference between them is inside of your eyeball cells, it's going to turn on the genes that are needed for eyeballs. All the other genes are going to be turned off. Inside of your heart cells are going to have your complete genome. They're going to have all the DNA, all of it. They're only going to turn on what's needed for the heart. So that's also another thing that like students get confused on, is they don't have different DNA. They're all identical cells. The only difference between them is what genes, what DNA is actually being turned on at that time. That's what's known as gene expression. Okay, let's do some practice problems. So each body cell of a goat contains 60 chromosomes. How many chromosomes will be inside of a goat gamete? 30, right? Because 30 from the sperm and 30 from the egg makes 60 for the goat. Genetic diversity, I guess I should talk about that a little bit more. So different organisms have different numbers of chromosomes. Humans, we happen to have 46. Goats have 60. They have different, whatever. Genetic diversity, that's also, fun fact, that's also a reason why species can't mate with each other, because they typically have different numbers of chromosomes. Genetic diversity is known as differences among any particular species. For example, cats. In a single litter of kittens with the same parents, no two kittens will look exactly alike because of diversity of genetics. Which of the following are features of meiosis that increase genetic variation? Crossing over and independent assortment. Crossing over, independent assortment. Okay. And last but not least, this is what meiosis looks like. So again, we start off with some chromosomes. DNA gets replicated in S phase. Now they're suddenly duplicated chromosomes, but they're still chromosomes. There's still only 4 chromosomes. Then they're going to divide through meiosis 1. Then the cell's going to divide again, a second division, in which we end up with our actual gametes. And notice that they all are genetically unique. They are all genetically different from one another. They are also all genetically different from the parent cell. They also have half as much DNA, right? This has 2 chromosomes. This has 1, 2, 3, 4 chromosomes as the parent. Okay, here are the meiosis main ideas. Go ahead and take some time to read that to yourself. All right, and that's that on that. Meiosis is sexual reproduction, and that's that. All right, peace out.